Goodness gracious. I see what happened.
Yeah, so now I'm getting tied up in my chair again with these
Punishment
wires.
for your sins, Mr. Harris.
It is for my sins. It really,
Punishment for your shortcomings.
really is for my sins.
You know, it came to me. I said, did he turn on? But then I just inferred that you did.
You did.
I see our good friend Roberto went ahead and sent out the links earlier, so I thought you did. So
Yeah, he was great that way.
my apologies. I should have double checked.
You just work this out while I play.
I know you're dying to sit there and start to give us some good news.
Cord.
My friend is being strangled by his own cord. I think I saw something like that on with the Facebook with cats or something. Alrighty, we'll get there soon eventually. I see our friend Mr. Glidden was on the Cayman Compass.
I saw that. I saw that. He was at the forefront talking about immigration.
Yeah.
Suggesting he didn't necessarily hear all of the details, but suggesting that he might otherwise support some of the proposed changes. He did quite correctly, though, talk about the population growth and perhaps the need to strengthen our labor rules in the face of that growing population. But to be honest with you, only caught a few snippets. I didn't have the opportunity to watch his full interview. But
yeah, neither. I caught a snippet also.
But I do enjoy listening to Mr. Glidden, that is Klein Glidden, former MP himself. He was a former minister as well, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, he was there with me. You know, he and I were in the back bench. We were ministerial councillors, and then, of course, during the little transition,
right?
He became a minister at that point. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Now he's just a very successful attorney at law.
One has to argue. One has to say which one is better. Probably just sitting there making money and less stress.
I'm thinking he's definitely looking at his current profession, going, "Why didn't I?"
He probably says, "No one feels entitled to beg my money from me.
Yeah.
No one's cursing me today.
Yeah. Indeed. I mean,
I don't have to get up and read the news.
He's probably working just as many hours, or maybe a little bit more. But I'm sure there's a great deal of job satisfaction. Just want to send a shout out to our friend Klein Glidden Jr., who we are talking about this evening, but only in a very pleasant and respectful manner. He did have a really interesting interview on the Compass TV last week, and talking about immigration. It seems everybody is talking about the immigration changes, but they're talking about it as if it's a done deal, where so far, correct me if I'm wrong, but so far they've just been talk. There's been no identification of these are the firm plans and these will be introduced. But, when I hear people talk about it, they say, yeah, they're set in stone and it's going to happen in September. But then I say, what's happening in September? Then nobody can tell you precisely. So that's what leads me to believe that we're just talking right now.
Well, here's what I can tell you. We don't have any idea when the world will end. But if the world is actually going to start, insofar as this government, it will be on January 1st, 2026. I think everything is scheduled to begin in January of 2026.
It certainly does. Well, we know the term limits, the rollover policy for the civil service is expected to commence January 1st next year. But again, from a labor immigration standpoint, again, Minister Miles has been talking.
Minimum wage, they say starting January 2026.
Minimum wage is also starting. Yeah.
This is why I'm saying, if the world is to begin with this government, starting
January 2026. Yeah. Well, it might. We might get a teasing start in September, which is again what, just all the talk from Minister Miles and everyone else who's talking around some of his proposed changes, suggesting that he's looking to at least commence the immigration reform sometime in September this year. So, but again, all it has been is just talk, I won't call it smoke, because I think there's a lot of fire behind this here smoke. But certainly in terms of, definitive policies, definitive changes, we still don't know that yet.
Well, the government has definitely made an effort to delay any sort of real announcements. As we know, the SPS is scheduled for October, November time frame.
Yes.
And I think the opposition has been somewhat successful in pressuring them to to release a few things, such as the minimum wage and also perhaps on some of these immigration reform. But even then, well, actually, no, they did release the part on the civil service all on their own.
They did,
right?
They did, and the jobs for Caymanians, which we applaud them for.
Which is slash job for Caymanians only within the service.
Correct.
And so that was released on their own. But again, they seem to definitely be holding back, and everything seems to, so far to be starting around the beginning of January 2026.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
So they definitely have us here waiting with bated breath for the SPS.
And again, I just point out that, during the campaign trail, they had all the answers. They knew what was needed, and they could tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt. The last group didn't have a clue. But as we talk about it and after the dust settles, we realize the last group is the current group, minding with a few sprinkles added on top, but arguably still the same people, just to perhaps a reshuffling.
Definitely the TCCP side is all there and was a part of the administration, and they should definitely have an idea where what the ground looks like and where the bodies are buried.
Right.
So you can only say that the Minister of Finance is definitely the new guy. And I know Mr. Raleigh, if I can call him that, good Ralston England. He's a sharp fella. I'm pretty sure that he must see something that needs some I dotting and T crossing, in part why this is being delayed.
He's a sharp guy. I hope he will use that sharp intellect and, choose to visit us on this program and share some of his plans.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that part. I think the government seems to be suggesting that they have their preferential talk show. But one thing you know about the watering hole, my friend,
where they have an easy time, no stress.
Yeah, where no one will challenge you. Everyone will be on your side.
Yes.
But the world, unfortunately, isn't that easy, and everyone will learn that eventually.
Quite right.
We've had at least 8 years, arguably, of nothing, of no one to actually hold anyone accountable in this country, as far as I'm concerned. At least 8 years of that.
That's right.
But that changes.
That does change. 45 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock, and trying to stay upbeat and in the good news section of our regular discussion. We were talking sports all last week, and a large part of that had to do with Justin Hastings and his participation in the British Open, which concluded over the weekend. Unfortunately, it's kind of good news. It's, kind of good news mixed in with a little bad news. We knew the British Open was going to present a challenge for Mr. Hastings, in particular, given the fact that he's been used to playing on American soil and American-style courses. But over the weekend, playing there in the British Open, which is less of a long, sort of high lobbing game, but more keeping the ball low and moving very fast. That proved difficult and challenging, not to mention the typical English or UK British weather, I'm sure also had their hand in it. But following the 2 days of play at the British Open, it did not go in Justin Hastings' favor as he had hoped, despite having 2 closing birdies in his final 2 holes, which offered a small consolation after what was a trying day, saw his chances of making it to the weekend's final cut diminished. A second round 74, the same as his first day on Thursday, when a 70 was, of course, needed in order to make the cut, and that didn't happen for him. But that's all right. Hastings is only 21, and as he signed his scorecard, he's now looking forward to a new beginning. His amateur career ended on Friday, and his pro career will begin in earnest next week in Canada. Due to his play at San Diego State, where he just recently graduated in the spring, Hastings will have the status on the Americas Tour, having finished 13th overall. He's scheduled to play all 7 of the remaining events at the Ottawa Open, an event that's on the PGA Tour Americas. He's scheduled to play all 7 of the remaining events, all in Canada, with the top players advancing to the Fortnite Championships. Now, there's a kicker. Fortnite is a game, by the way, that all the kids play all the rage. But now they're sponsoring a golf championship, and That's coming up this later on this year for Justin Hastings. From there, the top 10 on the season-ending points list, or the top 3 from the Canada Series, will earn a spot for next year's Corn Ferry Tour, which is considered a level up. He will also be exempt from the Latin American portion of the PGA Tour Americas next year. Hastings plans to spend the rest of the season in Canada with his father, Rich, caddying for him, which I think is a nice touch. Well, it's a good opportunity, father and son, and certainly dad must be incredibly proud of his boy. Rich Hastings has had the honors during the Latin American Amateur Championship, where in January, his son, Justin, won the tournament and one of the Amateurs Games' best perks. He took a spot in the Masters, the U.S. Open, and, of course, just this past weekend in the British Open. So Justin Hastings has a number of games left for the remainder of this calendar year, the large majority of them taking place in Canada. But the sad news is he didn't make the final cut at the British Open, but that's all right. You cannot win them all, and I'm sure next year he will be a threat to be reckoned with. So big shout-outs continuing to Justin Hastings, and obviously watching his career with much enthusiasm. Turning to more good news, we see in today's Cayman Compass, new signs have been installed to help protect blue iguanas. Just a few snippets from that headline. With traffic starting to increase in the eastern districts of Grand Cayman, one local company has stepped up to help to protect the iconic blue iguanas that are found nowhere else in the world but here in the Cayman Islands. Mariner Surf Company, which makes apparel and limited edition hats, recently designed and paid for 2 signs, which will be installed along the Queens Highway, encouraging motorists to be aware of the endemic species and to drive carefully to avoid hitting them. Now, this is rather important because, as we know, the Queens Highway is one of those few straight stretches of road where the speed limit is 50 miles per hour. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it's like these days, but there was a time where folks, from Georgetown, West Bay, I don't want to name any names or anything, would make the drive east just to, as they say, blow out their carburetor a little bit, put a little speed to their ride and do it legally. We tend to avoid that during red crab season. That makes speeding on that road a little difficult. But these signs will be posted along that same Queens Highway road, and we are encouraging motorists to exercise caution, not only to potentially save your own life, but also to give consideration to the blue iguanas as well. At one point, it was believed that there were fewer than 30 blue iguanas remaining in the Cayman Islands and arguably in the wild. But as a result of the Blue Iguana Conservation Program, there are now 1,200 that have been released in the wild, with many heading into the Salina Reserve and the Colliers Wilderness Reserve, both of which are located in East End. But
that's quite an accomplishment.
It is very, very good accomplishment, and I think that's something we can all be very proud of.
Something local on the increase.
That's right. Yes, quite right.
Well, I'll say.
Indeed. Well, I'll tell you, from 30 in the world to now over 1,200, and I don't know if the blue iguanas breed with, how should we say,
with the green?
With such ferocity.
Okay, I was going to say, no, I don't think so.
I don't believe they do. The green, they just seem to make babies all the time.
And they have outnumbered the blues for sure.
They're worse than rabbits. But on the protected iguana front, not to be outdone, we also have the issue on Little Cayman and Cayman Brac with the Sister Islands rock iguana as well. Perhaps maybe not as endangered as the blue iguana, but all have to dodge traffic, modern development. So we encourage motorists on all 3 islands to be on the lookout for our 4-legged reptilian friends who might otherwise be crossing the road. Forget about why did the chicken cross the road? Why did the iguana
Keep an eye on the iguana, for God's sake.
That's right. Watch out for them.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to put any iguana in the friend category, but I do see where you're coming from.
Yes.
It was funny when you said about the breeding. I thought you were going to say that the blue and greens breed together. What would I produce? Also, like a yellow iguana or something?
I tell you what, It'll be a rainbow of surprises. Let's put it that way. I hope they don't. We want to keep the blue iguana as pristine and certainly their genetic pool
It's pure.
as pure. That's the word I'm looking for.
Mhm.
Pure as possible. But again, it is nice to know that the blue iguanas are found nowhere else in the world except here in the Cayman Islands. And like the turtles, like the whistling duck, we need to do our part to keep them protected, create more natural, wilderness locations and reserves for them. Again,
They
just
do want
because.
us. They do want us to be doing with the turtle precisely what we're doing with the blue iguana, conserving them and not eating them.
Well, I don't. Again, though, you see,
I'm only telling you that's what they want.
I worry. I mean, I would worry. I wonder whether the consumption of turtle, which has always been an island delicacy for us Caymanians, are we consuming so much at such a point that therefore we are risking otherwise the wild population? My answer is no. Same thing we feel on the whole foreigners not being allowed to fish from the shoreline. Are they doing it in such large numbers that are preventing or excluding Caymanians from taking advantage of the same thing? No, they're not. So, I don't think it's cause for alarm at this point.
I agree with you. But there's actually no species conservation plan, as far as I'm aware, for the blue iguana, despite the fact that we seem to, according to that report, having some successes in terms of repopulating the area. And neither is there a formal species conservation plan for the turtles.
That is surprising.
And it's a lot of politics internal in the government that's holding it up.
Really?
That has to be a topic for another day as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is surprising when you consider, again, we've been working on establishing, the identity, what it means to be Caymanian. We had, the celebration of the coat of arms, which, of course, features a turtle on the very flag itself. We continue to talk about the value that is the Cayman Turtle Center, also another one of its kind in the world, and the work that it does. Even over social media this weekend, it's becoming more and more commonplace to spot turtles in the wild, and a big part of that is the work done by the Cayman Turtle Center. And so therefore it is surprising that there is no species protection legislation, act or otherwise, either for the turtle or the at one time almost extinct blue iguana. So gives you an idea what our politicians' priorities may be or have been.
Mm-hmm.
But as you say, maybe it's a discussion for another day. It is 56 now, 57 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock, giving us about 2 minutes before we have to go off to the top of the hour news. I suppose we can throw in just a little bit of bad news in the process. We were talking about fishing. We were talking about expatriates or foreign nationals fishing. Regrettably, over the weekend, a 53-year-old Jamaican woman who was living in the Cayman Islands died on Sunday morning after being swept into the ocean by a large wave while she was fishing from the north shore of West Bay. The woman was with a man when they were both hit by a large wave and pulled into the ocean. The man made it to shore and called for help, but the woman struggled to get back. Emergency services, including the Cayman Islands Coast Guard, were called out at about 11 a.m. They went straight to the scene, and the search for the woman began along the shoreline and in the water. She was later found by the Cayman Islands Fire Service Maritime Rescue Unit and brought ashore, where emergency medical personnel began treating her and immediately took her to the hospital, where, unfortunately, she was pronounced dead by the attending physician. Obviously, sad news to end a weekend, and certainly we want to extend our heartfelt condolences to the family of the late 53-year-old Jamaican woman, who, again, was doing nothing more than fishing, arguably, to put some food on the table.
Yep.
And to lose their life in such a manner is just, it's just a shame, really it is. And I am surprised, though. I didn't see over the weekend waves were big enough to perhaps sweep somebody, into the water. But clearly I was wrong. I mean, On the west shore,
I think it might be an issue in terms of not being able to swim, probably a bit of panic, that sort of thing.
Yes, I'm sure that is very much the case. And of course, off the North Shore of West Bay, the deeper water, so the waves are going to be bigger than they would otherwise be crashing on the west side. But whatever the circumstances, very sad to report. And again, our heartfelt condolences go out to the family, the friends, and those persons affected by this loss that occurred over the weekend.
Echo.
Keep it locked. There's going to be more Straight Talk still to come. Coming up next, we're going to check in with the top of the hour news, brought to you by our news partner, the BBC. But the phone lines will be open when we come back at 745-2626 on this otherwise Open Mic Monday here on Straight Talk, brought to you exclusively by Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. The UN Secretary-General says he's appalled by what he calls the accelerating breakdown of humanitarian conditions in Gaza as international criticism of Israel intensifies. Antonio Guterres said the last lifelines for Palestinians were collapsing. His comments coincided with a joint statement by the foreign ministers of about 30 countries saying Israel's war in Gaza must end now. A UN spokesman, Stéphane Dujarric, welcomed the declaration.
Frankly, it's something we've been saying for quite some time. Any country that has a influence over the parties needs to use that influence in a positive way. The world is watching the slow death of Palestinians in Gaza, and that is just intolerable.
Israel described the foreign minister's statement as disconnected from reality. Meanwhile, an Israeli ground offensive in Deir el-Balah in central Gaza continued throughout Monday, supported by airstrikes. Local medics said tank shelling had hit houses and mosques. Details of casualties are unclear. The World Health Organization said its staff residence and a warehouse in Deir el-Balah were attacked by Israeli forces. A vital desalination plant, the main source of water for hundreds of thousands of people, is in the battle zone. The BBC's Jeremy Bowen explained why Israel is targeting Deir el-Balah.
The Israeli army's Arabic spokesman posted on social media, we've heard this many times before. They're operating in great force, destroying enemy capabilities, destroying terrorist infrastructure. So the possibility of a ceasefire may be part of this, pressure on Hamas for more concessions, but also to continue the agenda that they have inside Gaza before the Americans particularly push for that.
A victim of the American sex offender, the late Jeffrey Epstein, has called on the U.S. government to release more information on the case as demanded by Donald Trump supporters. Annie Farmer told the BBC if the president had nothing to hide, he should prove everyone wrong. Mr. Trump's always denied any sexual misconduct. The White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt said steps were being taken to make some of the material public.
The president has told the attorney general and the FBI director to release any credible evidence that they find, and he also signaled to them over the weekend to move forward with unsealing the grand jury documents that were under seal by various judges across the country, and I believe the attorney general has taken the proper legal action to do that.
The judge hearing Harvard University's lawsuit against the Trump administration has questioned the grounds for the White House's withdrawal of more than $2 billion in grants. Judge Alison Burroughs told the Department of Justice lawyers that rather than making blanket accusations against the university, they should show faults in individual members of staff. BBC News. Ukraine says it'll hold the next set of peace talks with Russia on Wednesday in Turkey. Officials from Kyiv and Moscow held direct talks for the first time in 3 years in May and then in June in Istanbul. They yielded little apart from an agreement on exchanging prisoners of war. There's been a fresh show of support for Kyiv from its allies meeting in London. Bangladesh is due to observe a day of national mourning for at least 20 people killed when an Air Force plane crashed into a school in Dhaka. More than 170 others were hurt, many of them pupils at the exclusive Milestones School and College. The interim leader of Bangladesh, Mohammed Yunus, said the thoughts of the whole country were with the victims' families.
We extend our deepest sympathies to the parents, families and loved ones. Every child in Bangladesh is your child. Please try to find comfort among yourselves. We're all trying to comfort one another. What a tremendous tragedy this is. We're with you. The entire nation stands with you.
An Italian judge has ordered 4 police officers and 2 coast guards to stand trial over the deaths of more than 90 migrants 2 years ago. Their boats smashed apart in rocks within sight of a beach near the town of Cutro in southern Italy. The officials have been charged with negligence, contributing to multiple manslaughter. Astronomers say they've confirmed why Betelgeuse, one of the night sky's most luminous stars, regularly changes brightness. They discovered a much smaller companion star orbiting the red supergiant. Its passage across Betelgeuse's face causes a 400-day cycle of dimming and another nearly 6 years long. It's 10,000 times, Betelgeuse is 10,000 times brighter than our sun. BBC News.
Views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM with your host, Ellio Solomon, and myself, Austin Harris, as the phone lines, they are open. The number to call, 745-2626 is the number in studios. There we go. I was wondering why I wasn't hearing the music. But now we hear it now, don't you? Yeah, that's better. That's better. 745-2626 is the number in studios, or if talking isn't your thing, you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number by dialing 928-2562, which of course reminds me I need to change the image background again. I've been celebrating birthdays all weekend, which, by the way, I want to send a belated happy birthday wish to my mother, who celebrated her birthday on Saturday, and it was a very enjoyable evening. Likewise, I want to say a big shout out. Speaking of mothers, I want to send a big shout out to your mother, Miss Corrine, who sent me a very nice Sunday devotion on Sunday as well. So I do appreciate all of the moms, but in particularly our moms, for thinking of us and keeping us in their prayers, but also in their lives.
Well, when I heard you say belated birthday for your mom, I said, But when you said Saturday, I let you off.
You let me off,
That's understandable.
Yeah, no, it was just...
Don't tell me you forgot, Harris.
No, I didn't forget.
Good man.
It was a nice day. It was a good evening. We all went out to dinner with the family, and, again, it's just... it's a nice affair, and, of course, all of the grandkids are in town now, and, nothing makes moms and grandmas happier than to be around their grandchildren, apparently.
And, of course, I'm not surprised to hear that my mom sent you a devotion. I don't know all these scriptures and Bible for no reason, Austin.
Your mom's good people, and I just want to send a big shout-out to Miss Corrine and to Miss Ruby. Thank you to both ladies.
There you go.
We love you very much.
So one little bit more on the good news. Our website has launched.
Oh,
Mr.
yes.
Harris.
Please tell everyone about it.
Okay, well, I probably can't do as comprehensive a job as you, Mr. Harris, on that. You're so great at it. But either way, our website has launched. As you all know, we're broadcasting on a daily basis on the ACT Facebook page. We also do so on our own Facebook page,
yes.
Straight Talk, and YouTube. But now we have Straight Talk, and that's www.straighttalk.ky. And, of course, once you get on there, other than seeing Austin and I's, beautiful faces.
That's right. Facing off at each other.
You'll be able to see the first top scrolling area is links to the current shows.
Yes.
I think the furthest to the left will be the most recent. Mm-hmm. And then we're also putting some articles and stuff out. Some of those one primarily I've had. And, of course, later on we'll be getting news and press releases, etc. But hopefully you can go navigate the website, straighttalk.ky.
That's right.
Don't hesitate to send us your comments and our suggestions and things that we can do to improve it.
Indeed. Add us to your favorites, and let us know what you think of our website, which is, as I would say, in the embryo stages, but we're quite proud of it. I want to say a great big thank you to my colleague who's largely been leading on that side of the effort, along with our partners, NetClues, and on the development stage. Again, just very pleased with it, making some slow but consistent progress over the last 5 months as we seek to grow our new project here called Straight Talk. And the website is the latest edition.
Yeah.
Again, as Ellio pointed out, you can find it online, www.straighttalk.ky.
Yeah.
Very easy and simple to remember, but by all means, add it to your favorites. Take a look at it. You can download, various shows. So if you missed it one day, you can certainly catch the archive that's going to be available on that website. And hopefully, as time progresses, the archive will be a little bit more comprehensive than perhaps what is on YouTube and even on some of our Facebook channels. And there will be other editions as they slowly but surely come online. Always trying to find you in interesting ways to share and communicate important messages, but not least of which are the, how can I say, the raft of editorials that my colleague has been busy writing over the past 2 weeks. He has been very busy with the proverbial pen to paper, which of course means more fingers to keyboard, but really some thought-provoking discussions on issues of national importance. And I would encourage you, if you haven't already seen them on social media, particularly Facebook, you can see them all on the new website, straighttalk.ky. I would encourage you to read them. And as my colleague pointed out, by all means, feel free to share your feedback with us because we'd love to hear from you.
I wanted to just pick up a little bit, Austin, before we jump into any one specific topic. I think the topic that we inadvertently hit earlier on, I'd like to just touch on it. And that was when you mentioned about the government. And in this particular case, I'm pretty sure you're speaking about the elected government, not necessarily as yet choosing to come on the program. I want to highlight something to Caymanians because I have observed this in the politics. One of the things that you have is very easy to become in Cayman a persona non grata, some would say. In other words, you just have to challenge some politicians. You just have to run in their area. You will recall a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that we were hearing about this silent agreement or policy that was existing within the government that anyone that ran against them in a particular area could not necessarily be working on any of the boards. And again, this is something silent. I'm pretty sure I don't have it in writing, not anything that we can FOI.
Right.
But time will tell, right? Time will tell. We've seen that the premier has put 3 persons as his assistants. At least 2 of them were persons that were in his party that ran and was unsuccessful. And one of those persons, again, I guess somewhere in the friend category. But I say all of that because it is a very unfortunate thing, and it's human nature when you look and you see that most people are not very open to any sort of criticism. You know, not that anybody is going to take. You get divided when you quote Donald Trump, but I never forget Donald Trump some months ago was saying, it doesn't matter how you fire someone, they're not going to like it. Say you can take them to dinner, no matter how you do it, the bottom line is the moment they understand that they've been fired, then they have a problem. And so it is with society. Nobody wants to be corrected. We live in a world where no one wants to hear, and I generalize, but no one wants to hear, even suggesting that they might be doing something wrong or could be doing something better, no matter how you soften it up, unless you are kissing, then we have a problem. I say that because, again, let's not be surprised. I think the government, as in particularly the CCP, have already, I think we know where they're going to go. CINP, during the campaign, some of their candidates came on our particular program, and we didn't really have anyone from the opposition except for Mr. Kenneth Bryan. And amongst all of this, I do want to take the opportunity to say this because, as they say, give your flowers while you're still alive. And I take issue with some of the things that Mr. Bryan's done. I've indirectly addressed a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with. But let me say that I think Mr. Bryan is a person that I think shines in my books as far as actually having a tremendous amount of humility. And that is something that you don't get a lot of in leadership today. I remember, and I can't remember the specifics, but I've heard him more than once even call talk shows and being corrected. And I'm hearing this guy responding in such a way as, yes, okay, yeah. And I'm saying, it's almost to the point of, are you not embarrassed by that? But I take my hat off to him on the humility of being able to push forward with what he believes is right and being able equally to be able to take criticism, whether directly or indirectly. And I'm going to stress it. Whether that makes me friends or not, I believe that my job is to say it as I see it and not deny the world that opportunity to hear what I have to say, whatever I think. You can discard it, or you can put it somewhere on a shelf, or you can hang it on the wall. But I definitely think he gives a good example of humility. And I would ask you to judge for yourselves. Judge other candidates that, let's start with now in case your memory is bad. Judge other candidates that are now in Parliament and compare them to Mr. Bryan in terms of their willingness to call talk shows, go on talk shows, and actually face the music, share whatever they're doing, and being able to take criticism. I challenge you to share. I challenge you to compare it, you know? And I say all that, ladies and gentlemen, to say that we really need to expect more from our leaders. We need to get past some of these supposed adults that are, some of them even older than me, that are so childish. It is pathetic. When, I don't know what gets up into their bonnet, I can't comprehend it. So I know it's not logical. Some little emotional rant, like a little bunch of girls, I don't know, that maybe it was, Austin passed me at the restaurant last week. Didn't look at me.
Didn't pay me no mind.
Not even recognizing that maybe Austin didn't see you. I mean the most childish reasons to not participate supposedly in the democratic process. But let me just say again, I believe that a talk show is not here to sit and to kiss favors with the government. It's not there to just promote. It is there to offer the information that you, the general public, needs, both the positive and the negative. It should be informing you at all times of what a government, and this goes for newspapers as well, It should be telling you what the government is doing. But not just simply telling you what the government is doing, also helping you to understand what the government is doing and letting you know if they think that they've gone too far or that they haven't gone far enough. Those are the sort of things that the government or a media house is supposed to be doing. If you don't hear or see the media house doing that, then there's a problem. The media house isn't functioning properly. That means somebody is in bed with somebody else, because you can't possibly just have good things to say about the government. You can't possibly have nothing but good things to say about anyone, unless perhaps it's Jesus Christ, right? And even then, he would probably be criticized for the way he carried the cross. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I want you to just keep that in mind. We're going to do what we think is right. We're going to do what we believe is the right thing to do, and that is keeping you informed. We have spoken to several persons. Mr. Franz Manderson, the government wants to come on the program or be willing to come on the program. So we intend to engage in those discussions. We'll have other things, but we will continue to read, digest the articles, and use it as an opportunity to educate, enlighten, and to elevate the public. And I just wanted to share that before we jump into any other particular topic.
Well, thank you very much for that, and I would certainly concur with much of your analysis, in particular of all sides of the government as well as the opposition benches, but singling out the Honorable Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Kenneth Bryan. He has never shied away from media, and he certainly hasn't shied away from us, having been our guest on multiple occasions. I can't say the same about his colleagues, also in the opposition, perhaps a little gun-shy now that they didn't make the government for the second time around. But clearly, Kenneth Bryan not allowing that to dismay him at all. And to your point, whilst he too has been a target of opportunity by some media houses, that has not deterred him from, again, making his voice and making himself present. And to your point, maintaining his connection not only with the people that elected him, but the wider Cayman Islands as well, whether he is in government or, in this case, as a member of Her Majesty's loyal opposition. I don't want to stray from the good news, but there was also an observation over the weekend that had me thinking about good news about politics across the pond from us, and your good buddy DJ T, as it popped into my mind. I was actually ruminating.
And he smiles.
I was ruminating on the notion that, there were predictions, whether they be from mainstream economists or armchair politicians and talk show hosts, both, in the U.S. and arguably here in the Cayman Islands, that, another Donald Trump term would have been exciting and filled with potential disastrous moments, not least of which brought on by his otherwise tariff campaign, which undoubtedly would hit America just as hard as it would, any of the allied or other countries in which Donald Trump is trying to engage with. But there was an observation that was made, I think, across, well, at least the two mediums that I watched, there was CNN and the BBC to a smaller extent. But they were looking at the predictions as compared to the actual results since Donald Trump took public office. And again, whilst many people expected massive tariff-induced inflation to hit the United States as a result of some of his otherwise by the seat of his pants political action, those threats have not actually materialized. We were talking last week about, of course, the inflation and economic figures that are being released here in the Cayman Islands. But as always, we continue to maintain that, when America sneezes, Cayman catches a cold. So it's just as equally important for us to know what's happening in the American economy as we do and be aware of what's happening in the Cayman economy, because one rarely moves in a direction that the other does not follow. But despite all of the fear and the bravado that, Donald Trump would be bad for the economy and those tariffs that were proposed would be disastrous, consumer prices in the U.S. rose just ever so slightly to 2.4% last month, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Sky hasn't fallen.
No, the sky has not fallen. That was less than what economists had expected and only slightly higher than the 2.3% inflation rate in April. But it is interesting to note that even that 2.3% inflation rate represented the lowest inflation rate in the United States since 2021. So quite to the contrary, the tariffs, which were expected to, as my colleague just stated, cause the sky to fall, have actually had just the opposite result so far. Now, America's effective tariff rate is somewhere in the region of 14%, according to the Fitch ratings, which is up from 2.3% last year. And whilst economists, and of course some of the big names include Goldman Sachs, saying that core goods and inflation could hit a high of 6.3% this year, and we could see a surge in consumer prices perhaps in the first quarter of 2026. So far, inflation in the United States is indeed holding steady. There was concerns, of course, with the bombing in Syria that we might see, again, another surge in gas prices. But again, to the contrary, that little triple play surprise strike, again, I suppose achieved its objective. It reminded the world where the true power lies, encouraging Syria and other places to, hey, you might not want to go down this road because, well, you got a guy in office who
might drop a bomb on you.
He might drop a bomb or 2 or 14 on you just to make a point. And he's certainly not going to be shy about it. And whilst there were fears that sort of, again, shooting from the hip approach would be dangerous, again, it has had just the opposite effect. It seems to have calmed tensions. And again, we haven't seen a spike in fuel prices, which we, again, knock on wood for, because obviously that will also have a necessary and equal knock-on effect here in interest here in the Cayman Islands. But so far, America's economy is seeming to not fall from the sky, but in fact holding on strong. Inflation, again, holding steady. It is increasing a little. And again, some economists believe that will continue to rise once we get past the summer months into Christmas. But then one will argue that it always gets expensive the closer you get towards Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then it levels out again. But I thought it was worth mentioning to you, my pal of mine, because I know I won't say you're the president of Donald Trump's fan club, but you're certainly a member. And I wanted to say, you know what? Despite all of the bravado, the fear, and the negative comments about DJT and his, action as president and the results on the rest of the world, it's actually been very positive, and he's doing a fine job. And, of course, why does that matter in the Cayman Islands context? Well, as we said before, and we'll say again, and we didn't invent it, we just repeat it. As America sneezes, Cayman catches a cold. So whilst we are here in Cayman taking a look at some of our own economic indicators this past week, with both the second and third quarter earnings reports coming out, the labor force survey, the quality of life survey, the numbers in terms of Cayman's imports and whatnot. Likewise, we're seeing the same sort of sharing of statistics in the U.S., and both economies seem to be running on track side by side, and I think that is good news for us for the moment while it lasts. And I thought I'd share that.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm somewhat of a Donald Trump fan. Again, that doesn't mean I agree with everything he does, but I definitely admire his strength to be able to persevere in many instances. I also like one of the things I also like the fact that he's definitely not afraid to call the name of Jesus Christ when in office, and that's not necessarily always a bad thing, especially in this world today. But I wanted to say, Austin Harris, as we talk about this, I wrote this little article. I don't know unless you had something specific you want to talk about.
No, you can go right ahead. I just want to warn you. How
much time we have?
You got about 2 minutes.
Oh, well, there's no time for that.
No.
I won't get it.
You can sort of hint at what the article involves.
You like that teasing, right?
I do like a little tease.
Well, I wrote something here that basically is talking about the media. It talks a little bit about politics as well. But, I looked around, and you'll know that this, I don't even know what is it that took place. Somebody, the Byron guy and some lady at some function, and this is all over the media. And it just
you
called
mean the Coldplay
yeah,
thing?
that's
Yeah.
it. That's
yeah,
it.
it's amazing what goes viral in this world and what catches people's attention.
I sat there and I said to myself, are we serious? I mean, honestly, it's like
it's not just, some media houses in Cayman that like to talk about people. Apparently the world likes to talk about other people's business and make it mainstream news.
And I was even
blows me away.
At first I saw that someone had posted on Facebook, and then a little later on I saw that, of course CMR put it out, not surprised. And then I logged on, and then there was, I think it was one of the newspapers in Jamaica, and someone made a comment that I would have made, something like, is this really where news is going now?
Yeah, it's pathetic, really.
And I just sit there and go, I don't know. It's like I feel like I'm living in a different world. Is this? Are you really kidding me?
Yeah, no. I'm with you on that one. I was surprised by the speed in which an otherwise, I don't know, non-news item became the predominant, if not main, news item the world over. But again, some folks just, as I say before, their life sucks, but they would rather say somebody else's life sucks more. That's newsworthy. We have to pause, but keep it locked. There's more Straight Talk coming up next.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
Have your engine driving like never before with Pure 93, the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman, and available exclusively at Rubis service stations. Pure 93 protects against engine knock, restores lost power and acceleration, cleans fuel injectors, intake valves, removes engine deposits, improves your fuel economy, and it meets international specification requirements for your car. Fill up with Pure 93 now and keep your engine running like new. Fuel the difference with Pure 93, available exclusively at Rubis.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
Cayman, Units is here, the island's newest move-in and storage solution. Our robot delivery system allows you to put your unit almost anywhere while providing level loading, uploading, and minimizing shifting. What's even better, no time constraints. Pack at your own pace for moving or store as long as you need. Short-term or long-term, at the home or on the job site. Units, fast, safe, and secure. Check us out at units.ky and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
The Office Hero. To claim this title, you have to make an exceedingly wise decision. Do something that benefits staff, impresses clients, all while keeping expenses low. Are you ready to be the office hero? Here's what to do. Call Hughes Cleaning Service. Hughes Cleaning Service will make your office shine and you a hero. Dusting, vacuuming, windows, sanitizing, and more. Hughes expert cleaners will make your office a healthy, immaculate, impressive workspace. Call 949-0734. Visit hughes-janitorial.com. Hughes, you get more than clean.
When you're on the go, the experienced team at Foster's Pharmacy are here to help. Drop off your prescription while you shop or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
It's trivia every Wednesday from 7 o'clock at Sandbar on the Georgetown waterfront. Your chance to win some fantastic prizes in our free-to-enter Trivia Madness. Great offers on beer buckets, margaritas, and a delicious menu served throughout the evening. Grab your pals and get along to Sandbar every Wednesday from 7 o'clock for the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Are we ready?
Yes, mommy!
Then let's do this. Trivia, Sandbar, 7 o'clock, Wednesday. See you there.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The Views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on your favorite Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook with the key search word Straight Talk Radio Show. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And the phone lines, they are open at 745-2626 is the number in studios. If you want to be a part of our discussion, either responding to some of the topics we've already offered up on the table, or perhaps taking us in an entirely different direction, well, by all means, the phone lines are awaiting on your call at 745-2626. If talking isn't your thing, you can still reach out to us on our WhatsApp line by dialing 928-2562. Not only can you share a traditional WhatsApp text message, but if you want to leave us a quick audio note, you can do so there as well. And rounding it off, of course, you can also email us at host@straighttalk.ky. And thanks to my colleague reminding all of our listeners, if you missed it during the break, there is a new feature here on the program. That, of course, is our new website, which you can check out at www.straighttalk.ky. Still in development, but very excited about what we have to offer so far. And, of course, we will be improving various features over the course of the next few months. But by all means, we're quite proud of what we have now. Check it out. See what you think. Not only can you see archived shows of shows you may have missed in the past, but a number of interesting articles presently, editorials, if you will say, written by my colleague, which, again, I encourage you to take a look at because they are thought-provoking. You don't have to agree with every word, but I will tell you, they all make you think. And Palomine, speaking of thinking, you had us...
I had to laugh the first time.
Some more.
I had to laugh that first time I heard this Palomine. I'm thinking it's one word, right? Palomine. It's like saying, no, pal of mine.
Palomine. Palomine. Friend. My brother from mother.
I saw this thing flying around. And listen, I'm not saying that by any means that, you know, what he did or is doing is right. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying, you know, where exactly have we gone that is the top issue in the news? I don't know.
Again, if you missed the last segment, we're referring to the viral news media that took the world by storm. You swear Donald Trump, you know, cured world hunger by all of the activity that was being drawn around it. But no, we're talking about none other than the Coldplay CEO and or his mistress, co-workers being caught on candid camera, and then, of course, drawing even more attention to themselves by quickly ducking for cover. You know, if they stayed embraced, nobody would have noticed the camera would have moved on.
Yeah, the camera would have moved on. Yeah.
You know, but when we get excited, that's what happens.
Yeah. But the thing is that, I mean, I didn't even know about the guy until this. I mean, who's Byron, CEO of Astronomer? Do you even know that company?
I don't even know that company. I don't think no one knew a thing about it. Sometimes it makes you kind of wonder if it was staged just as a stock, you know, bump. Because amazing. God knows they were certainly all the buzz, not just in U.S. media, but everywhere.
Yeah. So I wrote, there's an ancient Latin phrase that I believe is very relevant to the times we are now living in. Panem et circenses, bread and circuses. It was coined by the Roman poet Juvenal to describe how the Roman people had lost their way, trading their dignity and responsibility for food handouts and entertainment. The Roman elite, knowing they couldn't win the people with wisdom or vision, instead gave them distractions, gladiator games, free green, chariot races, and public executions. Keep them fed, keep them entertained, keep them from thinking. That was ancient Rome, but one could argue that is also us right now. Feeding and being fed. Today's Colosseum isn't made of stone, it's digital. It's 24/7. It's social media feeds, scandal-driven headlines, and sensationalized news stories, such as, but not limited to, who slept with whom. All this while families fall apart, the economy trembles, and our young people lose their sense of identity and purpose. We gasp at stories about a CEO caught in an affair. We obsess over celebrity divorces, but I'm curious, where is the outrage over the millions of unborn children aborted each year? Where is the headline about the erosion of family, the breakdown of values, the confusion about gender, marriage, and morality? Here in Cayman, we've seen what catches fire in the media. Not the vote to legalize gambling in a Christian country, not the slow normalization of marijuana use, not even the importation of foreign ideologies that attack our culture. No. What grabs the attention is whether someone in a leadership role 1,000 miles away had a consensual relationship. That apparently is newsworthy. But what does that say about us? The mob and the mirror. We can't just blame the media, can we? We can't just blame politicians either. The media gives the people what they think the people want, and often they're right. Politicians bend to public pressure not because they're always weak, but because they want to win elections. They follow wherever the mob is pointing. So who's driving the mob? We are. We feed the system. We click the headlines. We share the drama. We ignore the silence behind the screams. The institutions that fail us are mirrors of us. And that is perhaps the most sobering truth. We have become the crowd in the Roman Colosseum, thirsty for blood, entertained by downfall, indifferent to the consequences. When entertainment replaces ethics, Rome fell, not from outside invaders alone, but from within. It collapsed under the weight of its own decadence. It became a civilization of comfort and not one of conviction. Its people wanted pleasure and not principle. They abandoned their God-given order for what felt good in the moment. Sounds familiar? The Bible says God is not the author of confusion, 1 Corinthians 14:33, but confusion is exactly what we're living in. We're told that everything is relative, that values are outdated, that truth is offensive. Meanwhile, leaders are mocked, morality is politicized, and society fractures at every level. Yet we cheer as long as the show goes on. A call to wake up. This isn't a call to return to some romanticized past. It's a call to recognize that we are on a dangerous path. That just like Rome, we are entertaining ourselves to death, distracting ourselves while the walls fall down around us. Panem et circenses was never a compliment. It was a warning. When people give up the pursuit of truth for comfort, of entertainment, they invite destruction. It's time we stop feeding the machine that is feeding off us. It's time we take a hard look in the mirror. Not at the media, not at the politicians, but at ourselves. Because the Colosseum may look different today, but the crowd is still roaring. The question is, are you a part of it? Let's strive to be better. Let's engage in actions and words that better ourselves, our families, and our communities. So I don't know, Mr.
Wow.
Mr.
Wow.
I almost said Byron, but you know, all I can say is I just really I have no words. Honestly, I'm speechless. That
you have no words. Is that what
yes,
you just said?
I really
you have no words.
Well,
I think you just gave us 300 words.
Well, I have that, but the sprinklings is what I'm giving you, honestly, because what I saw was pretty much an entire world on this topic. And I really don't have the words to describe that. I'm sitting and saying, you know, that's probably the best I could come up with, is that what exactly have we come to? That the only thing that fascinates us now is, you know, that's like the Colosseum. Let's put some people inside of there and let them fight each other. And let's watch the blood and gore. And that's what's going to really fascinate me, because my brain no longer possesses the capacity to think about anything of real import. That to me is what we have become. You know, let's talk about what Austin's wearing and what clothes. It's this nonsense. And I've always asked God, I want to live to see, you know, different times. But it's a big question mark right there. No, I'll pause. I yield my floor.
No, please don't yield anything. I'm just sitting here admiring this body of work that has started to come from the proverbial desk of Ellio Solomon. Who knew you were such eloquent, passionate, certainly purposeful writer? I mean, when did this happen? And is this a direct result of the vote on cannabis? Are you finding inspiration somewhere else? Because that was very well presented. You're always, quote unquote, praising me about reading, but I guess you're reading your own words. But really, Ellio, that's another fantastic bit of writing, and if I might add, very well verbally presented as well.
What I'm going to say about you, Austin. But thank you. I mean, I'm
giving you kudos.
I appreciate that.
Genuinely proud of you.
I appreciate that. I wrote some in the past. I wrote some in the past before. I mean, like on the whole issue with the regiment. But I was busy doing other stuff at the time. But now that I'm back on the talk show, I decided to say, hey, let me just do a little bit more of the writing.
Well, forget our Christmas album. I can't wait for the memoirs to come out. Musings of a Once Upon a Time NP. Now back to talk show host Ellio Solomon's writings on the wall. Really, some really impressive articles tackling some, I dare say, tangible and certainly legitimate topics.
Poignant issues.
But very, very well written. A poet and you didn't even know it.
Poet and you didn't know it.
Well done, buddy.
I'm impressed. But what do you think about?
I'm impressed.
But what do you think about that, Austin?
Miss Corrine, you got to be very proud. I know that's all you. That's all you.
My mother's a writer.
I believe it.
By the way,
she's an author, right? A celebrated author.
Several books.
See?
I've got to bring her on to promote her new book.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
Now it makes perfect sense.
She just wrote another book. I got to bring her on here, too.
You definitely got to hear from that.
But it is it's just like I said, I don't want to spend too much time talking about it because I'm not talking about that particular issue. But I'm just really curious. I mean, maybe I really feel like an auditor at sometimes because I'm sitting and saying, I don't know. It's not something that would have captured my mind to say, hey, we need to talk about this.
Well, clearly it's not just K-Man because I shake my head all the time asking myself, is this what we're talking about? Is this what the listening audience and the viewing audience want in terms of news? Again, that Coldplay story going viral across the globe left me scratching my head as well. But again, it seems to be where people are interested in. We do have a caller on the line, though. Let's see if we can hear from them. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good evening, Austin, Mr. Austin, Mr. Ellio, Mario Eubanks here. How you doing?
Hey, buddy, we're very well. Thank you very much. Trust you had a good weekend.
Beautiful. Yeah, lovely weekend. Too many funerals, but it is what it is,
It is what it is.
But at least you get to see a lot of Caymanians
true.
At funerals. And it's also a good worship experience and also good to, sympathize with the bereaved,
Yes.
But a lot of funerals.
I saw you posted on Facebook that you went to the restaurant, Kojima.
I did. Kojima, yeah. It's quite nice. I don't know who owns it, but that's what I want to talk about today a little bit. But it's it was very good, and it's good to see Georgetown, with some activity, and if we can plan our activities in a sustainable manner and make it sensible, and daytime and nighttime, you have a good balance. Georgetown on the waterfront and in the suburbs. Guys, it would have been so much better if 50 years ago we had a master plan. I was just looking at myself, my wife, we were just looking at that location that Kojima is, and looking at that and say, if 50 years ago we had put a master plan in place where you had along the waterfront, you had a walking area and you had an area you could actually sit out on benches and watch the sunset, and then you had the restaurants and cafes along there. We've been to so many countries where you see along the coastline, you have areas to walk or to ride, bicycle or just hang out. You'd have been much better than having everything jammed against the iron shore and can't see the sunset, and you really, unless you're at these establishments, but you can't walk along the coastline as you do in some better planned communities. But anyway, that's probably water under the bridge now. But it would have been so much nicer if we had done that, 50 years ago with a proper plan. I mean, people like the late Honorable Benson Obadiah Banks in the late 70s or early 70s from 72, we're talking about that kind of thing, a development plan and managed growth and long-term planning. But of course, that was not politically expedient and not very popular to those that wanted to open the floodgates and just develop. But like I say, it is what it is. But it's a shame that we didn't do that.
Yes. Indeed.
But yet, I heard a tail end of the expose that you just read. I don't know, was that Ellio's one of his writings, or
yes,
was
that was from the desk and mind of Ellio Solomon. I was blown away.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know where it came from. I cut the kind of tail end of it, but it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And certainly, definitely, very thought-provoking as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want to talk about is this perfect storm that we have going here. We have a perfect storm, which is that Ellio's article actually anchored that in my mind as well, because we have a situation where we as Caymanians want our cake and want to eat it too. And so if you look at, for example, business licenses, right?
Yep.
Any Caymanian who applies for business license, or a non-Caymanian with a 6% Caymanian partner, pretty much will get that business license.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as I know, and I have applied for a couple myself over the years, they don't ask you, please identify your source of labor. Are you going to have Caymanian labor, or do you have labor at all? Do you know where you're going to get the labor from? That question is not asked, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're given your business license. So once you get the business license now, and you've invested in that, and you start to invest in other capital expenditure to get your business going, then you can't have immigration or work permit or business staffing plan telling you that you can't have your permits because you have a business license. So you have a perfect storm brewing there. So what I'm saying is that, and on the other hand, you have all these buildings being put down, and then we're saying, well, we want to have population majority for Caymanians, but how can you have population majority if there's no control or no long-term thinking about the impact of labor or people or population on the granting of business licenses, or the impact of population or people when we develop all these commercial buildings, hotels, condos, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is a perfect storm, and if we don't figure out where we're going and have a 50-year plan as to how we're going to get there, we are going to get to a situation, as I said on your show many times, what Paul Keynes Douglas talks about. We're on the edge of a precipice and about to make one bold step forward. And I am sorry to say that with the government's, over the years, appetite for expenditure and, in some cases, pork barrel expenditure, that has caused the situation to become even more aggravated, because now with all the expenditure and debt and services, we have to find revenue to fund all that. So who in government has an appetite for curtailing revenue because they need it so badly to fund all of this appetite for services and for infrastructure and for other things that we don't have money for? So I just want to put this diatribe out to follow up on Ellio's very provocative thoughts that we need to figure out where we're going and put the pause on some of this. Otherwise, it's going to be too late to do anything about it, if it's not already too late.
Absolutely.
Caller, thank you very much, as usual.
Yes, Mario, as always,
taking the
very
time out.
thought-provoking and for being a thinking man, which we do appreciate. And he makes a valid point as it relates to, obviously, the ongoing conversation of the need for a development plan. What do we want to be? What are our aspirations? Where do we want to go? Or do we just want to continue to sort of develop in a haphazard manner, which really is being led by the vision of developers,
right?
Not necessarily our own vision for ourselves, how we want to, whether it's the coastline transferred or the inland properties, or again, the infamous Go East initiative. Are we going to be spreading out a little bit? Really, we're led entirely by the whims of somebody else's vision for us.
Private individuals' visions, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was just chuckling because I was saying, well, first of all, Mario always makes a wonderful contribution, but I chuckled because I said, last time he corrected me, he said, he's my cousin, you know. And so I said, I wonder if he just resiles himself to calling me cousin whenever he's going to correct me. Just so I don't feel too bad.
Well, you know.
But either way, I really appreciate it. He always makes a contribution. He picks up the phone. He's willing to call, and I really appreciate that.
He does, and he makes, again, a number of very salient, if not poignant remarks that are worthy for consideration, and we thank him for taking the time once again for sharing his thoughts on the issue of development planning and hopefully guiding the government. I will say, though, he talks about, I wonder whether or not the government might be willing to forego certain revenues. I'm assuming he's referring to the development mad dash. But certainly, again, whilst he may not necessarily agree with where I'm going to go, but we certainly see the government, again, either directly or inadvertently foregoing revenues on at least one side of the tourism equation, as we have talked about. We continue to see a steady decline in cruise, and with it, revenues to the jurisdiction. We haven't seen what the government plans are for the strategic policy statement, but we have heard some of their remarks in terms of labor reform, which in many cases have Caymanians singing and shouting for joy. But again, I warn folks that this playing to the gallery may look good, may sound good, but in terms of the consequences to how they will impact the delicate balance of what makes our economy work, we could very well be kicking the goose that lays the golden egg that has sustained us. And one of those areas he talked about was human capital management. You want to start a business, you want to, be business-minded. Where are you going to get your staff from? We've long acknowledged that there just simply aren't enough Caymanians to do all of the jobs that are available. The population is growing, and with that, services and demands from that population. Otherwise, fertile grounds for an entrepreneur to, or 2 or 3 or 5 or 6. We talk about Kojima being the latest introduction to Cayman's restaurant scene. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend that you do. I want to tell you who owns it, but I won't take that stern look from my colleagues, so I'll keep quiet. I'll let him talk about it, one cousin to the next. But again, these are fertile grounds for opportunities, some of which Caymanians to participate in. But likely that we're going to see larger foreign direct investment with this growth. One of the topics that I want to touch on that was recommended to us last week was, perhaps encouraging us to take a look at food security. But when we look at things such as Cayman's dependence on American-made products, we can certainly see what is driving that dependence. And it's not the Caymanian local populace, but in fact the growing expatriate community. So again, all of these discussions really go hand in hand. The need for a development policy so that we can, as Caymanians, control our own destinies and have a Cayman that maybe we can recognize, but also we have to be very, very careful not to upset what is and has always been a very delicate balance. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Cayman has a pretty well-working machine, well-working engine. All you got to do is, maintain it. It's kind of hard to mess it up, even if you're a government just sort of guessing your way through an administration, as we saw arguably, the last term and the haphazard nature of the 1, 2, maybe 3 governments in 4 years. But that economic engine managed to survive even that. But a few dramatic actions could either make or break this country. And whilst, again, a lot of the talk on the labor front is being viewed pleasantly by Caymanians, arguably saying, we've been wanting this for a long time, there are always consequences and unintended consequences, and we have to be able to recognize and accept them for what they are, even if it is, doesn't make us feel good about ourselves. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
So,
just not sure I got much time to comment. How much time do we have?
Not enough time to comment. Well,
There
you
you
can have
go.
about you can tease us with a minute, 2 minutes,
2
maybe
minutes.
minute and a half.
No, well, I mean, again, this is where I'm saying that there's a difference between form and substance, and I think a lot of times we gravitate very quickly to hearing certain words. I remember one particular politician. You always hear these words, these pro-Kimanian words, and they were very attractive. But again, where's the substance in that? I remember sitting in, like, one of the things I'm very good at is art. I remember designing a bed, and I'm sitting and saying, how can I design a bed that looks like it's floating? Because artistically, I can draw a floating bed. But the reality, the engineering can't facilitate that, at least not yet. And so there's a lot of things that sounds good. And I really challenge us to look at the mechanics and really see how much of that is going to be delivered. Even when we talk about jobs for Kimanians, I heard the person acting as the deputy premier say 13 years. We didn't have it. We didn't have the structure back then, they claim. No, I don't necessarily agree with that. But took them 13 years.
Quite right.
To find the structure.
59 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time. Going to pause, check in with the BBC News, but there'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here on Bobo FM.
Bobo.
BBC News. BBC News. World news from the BBC. Violent clashes. Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here. More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. The UN Secretary-General says he's appalled by what he calls the accelerating breakdown of humanitarian conditions in Gaza. Antonio Guterres' comments coincided with a joint statement by the foreign ministers of about 30 countries saying Israel's war in Gaza must end now. One of the signatories, the British Foreign Minister David Lammy, criticized Israel's system of aid distribution.
It contradicts long-established humanitarian principles. It creates disorder Hamas is now exploiting, with distribution points reduced from 400 to just 4. It forces desperate civilians, children among them, to scramble unsafely for the essentials of life. It's a grotesque spectacle, wreaking a terrible human cost.
Israel said the statement sent the wrong message to Hamas. Meanwhile, an Israeli ground offensive into Deir al-Balah in central Gaza continued throughout Monday, supported by airstrikes. Local medics said tank shelling had hit houses and mosques. The World Health Organization said its staff residence and a warehouse in Deir al-Balah were attacked by Israeli forces. Here's Lise Doucet.
If we believe the most right-wing supporters of Prime Minister Netanyahu, including those in his cabinet, they want to make life insufferable for Gazans everywhere, so that they will end up taking up this offer that President Trump has spoken about, the Israelis talk about voluntarily leaving the Gaza Strip. And it seems as though it wants to push them as far as possible to the south, kettle them into as small as area as possible to make life absolutely unbearable.
A victim of the American sex offender, the late Jeffrey Epstein, has called on the U.S. government to release more information on the case as demanded by Donald Trump supporters. Annie Farmer told the BBC if the president had nothing to hide, he should prove everyone wrong. Mr. Trump's always denied any sexual misconduct. More from Neda Tawfiq.
Annie Farmer made the earliest known reports of abuse by Jeffrey Epstein to the FBI in 1996. Since then, she's felt betrayed and says the only sense of justice has been the conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell, a trial she gave evidence in as a key witness. Now, as Epstein's case is back in the headlines and causing a political headache for Donald Trump, she feels the case has been politicized and the victims used.
The judge hearing Harvard University's lawsuit against the Trump administration has questioned the grounds for the White House's withdrawal of more than $2 billion in grants. Judge Alison Burroughs told the Department of Justice lawyers that rather than making blanket accusations against the university, they should show faults in individual members of staff. BBC News. Police in the U.S. city of Louisville have detained several protesters outside a court where a white former police officer was being sentenced in connection with the shooting of a black woman 5 years ago. The Justice Department asked for a jail term of a single day for the ex-policeman Brett Hankinson. He took part in the raid in which Breonna Taylor was shot dead as she slept. And within the past few minutes, he has been sentenced to 33 months in prison. Bangladesh is due to observe a day of national mourning for at least 20 people killed when an Air Force plane crashed into a school in Dhaka. More than 170 others were hurt, many of them pupils at the exclusive Milestone School and College. Masood Tariq is a teacher there.
I was picking up my children from the school gate when I realized something coming from behind. Then I heard an explosion. I looked back and only saw fire and smoke. I just rushed my kids away on a rickshaw and saw more smoke and fire. So many parents and children were here too.
Ukraine says it'll hold the next set of peace talks with Russia on Wednesday in Turkey. Officials from Kyiv and Moscow held direct talks for the first time in 3 years in May and then June in Istanbul. They yielded little apart from an agreement on exchanging prisoners of war. There's been a fresh show of support for Kyiv from its allies meeting in London. A French court has jailed 3 people for trafficking migrants to work in the champagne industry. A Kyrgyz woman has been given a 2-year prison term for exploiting 50 migrants from African countries and housing them in appalling conditions during the 2023 harvest. 2 men were jailed for 1 year. BBC World News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcast live over YouTube and Facebook under the key search word Straight Talk Radio Show. You can also find us streaming live on the ACT Cruise Tourism page and also on our new website, www.straighttalk.ky. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And now the time in studio, 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock as we move into our final segment of the evening. But the phone lines, they still remain open at 745-2626. is the number in studios. If you want to call us up to have a discussion on some of the topics presently on the discussion table, or as always, even if you want to take us in an entirely different direction, the phone lines are yours should you wish to utilize them. If talking isn't your thing, you can still reach out to us on our WhatsApp number by dialing 928-2562, and you can either share a traditional WhatsApp text message or a WhatsApp audio note with us, and we'd also love to receive those comments as well. Ellio, you were offering some commentary following one of our regular callers and listeners, Mr. Mario Ebanks. Again, thanking him for another thought-provoking topic for us to consider. But you were restrained by 2 minutes. Now you aren't. So the floor is yours.
I think I managed somehow to succinctly get it out. So I think I'm fine with that. It's not a problem.
Anything else for us that you want to discuss, or shall we move on to another topic that may lead us down the road of a conversation one of our listeners indicated that he would like us to pursue in the not-too-distant future, and that is, of course, on food security.
Well, I will just finish by saying I know that when we were here on Friday, it was unfortunate that we were chatting with Lion, I think it was, in relation to the fishing ban. And I don't remember the specific comments that I wanted to make, but I just wanted to, again, to just thank him for calling the program. Yep. And, you know, it's always good in terms of those engagements, and he made some very meritorious comments, and we appreciate it.
We certainly do, as always, and also thank him for some, I know you made a number of kind compliments in our direction as well, which we also do appreciate. We thank you for taking the time.
Food security.
Food security. Excuse me, I think I'm developing a cough. Cayman leads Caribbean growth of U.S. food imports. That was the headline in today's Cayman Compass. And just a few interesting paragraphs, if you will, to set the stage. It reads, the Cayman Islands is now the fastest growing market for U.S. food imports in the English-speaking Caribbean, according to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Over the past decade, Cayman's imports of food from the U.S. have grown by an average of 8.1% per year, almost double the 4.7% growth rate seen across the wider Caribbean basin. In 2024, the basin, which comprises some 37 countries, including the Cayman Islands, imported a total of $5.47 billion in food from the United States. The Cayman Islands accounted for nearly 2.5% of that total, highlighting its significant share despite its small population and size. In 2024 alone, Cayman imported U.S. $136.78 million in food from the United States, not including live animals. That makes Cayman the 58th largest market globally for U.S. food exports out of a total of 189 countries.
Wow.
I want that to ruminate for a minute. Let that sink in.
You need to say it a couple of times.
2024 alone, Cayman imported $136.7 million in food from the United States, not including live animals. That makes Cayman the 58th largest market globally for U.S. food exports out of a total of 189 countries, and fourth among English-speaking Caribbean nations behind Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Bahamas, all islands of nearly triple the size of the Cayman Islands, if not quadruple the size of the Cayman Islands.
Physical and in numbers of persons.
And then numbers of persons, indeed.
Even more, right? What's the population of Jamaica, by the way? Because let's just harp on that. It's got to be like around 3 million or so now, or so.
At least. That's but let's find out precisely.
I mean, so you compare millions to just about going around 80,000 people here in Cayman. That is some serious imports.
Jamaica has 2.84 million people as of 2023. Again, compared to Cayman's under 100,000. Let's see. What about Trinidad and Tobago? Trinidad and Tobago has, by comparison, 1.35 million people in 2023. And then, of course, let's look at the Bahamas, which I'm sure is knocking on the door. That's surprising. The Bahamas has a population of just under 400,000 people, 399,440 in 2023. I was certain there would have been, in the million, if not, 1,000,001, 1,000,002.
Right. So we're 25% pretty much of the Bahamas population.
Quite right.
What is it? Trinidad, you said? I mean, it was at 1/15th or something?
Yeah, Trinidad was 1.36, and then, of course, Jamaica at 2.84 million. And we are number 4 behind all 4 of those countries in terms of dependence for the U.S. for exports. The rise in food imports reflects a deepening reliance on food from the U.S. Cayman imports more than 90% of its food, with around 80% of that coming either directly from the U.S. or passing through U.S. ports. This leaves Cayman exposed to external economic and political shocks, including changes in U.S. trade policy. The sharp rise in food imports is driven by a mix of demographic and economic factors. Data from the Economic and Statistics Office shows that the population grew by 29.2% between 2010 and 2021. So in 11 years, the annual growth rate was about 2.4% a year. What's more, between the official census population reported in 2021 and the estimated population at present of 88,833, cited in the Economic and Statistics Office latest labor force survey of the fall of 2024, Cayman's population grew by another 25% just in the last 3 years alone, in between the last census and the most present one. This growth is fueled largely by an expanding expatriate community with diverse dietary preferences. So again, when you look at this dependence, and again, we didn't invent the saying. America sneezes, Cayman catches a cold. Certainly, when we are fearful of tariffs and price increases that may otherwise affect the U.S. Geographic market, that's also going to have an impact here on the Cayman Islands. Heaven forbid there's another global pandemic or otherwise shock where the U.S. perhaps contracts or restricts its own flow to obviously feeding their own communities and states. And then where's the Cayman Islands going to be? We talk about obviously the acres upon acres that exist in the Cayman Islands of arable land that can be farmed but isn't farmed. We acknowledge that we don't have the farming capabilities that would otherwise feed our nation as a standalone. However, we could do a far cry better to grow some of our own vegetables or fruits, particularly the tropical fruits, which, we have the climate for, to add some resilience to the Cayman Islands. I think I certainly would applaud, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, about some of the ranchers perhaps, expanding their flock to include other types of cattle, outside of the traditional Black Angus. And I don't know all of the individual names. I'd have to look it up. I'm not a cattle man. I just consume them. I don't, know what
like
they
I
are.
said, we don't spell it, we eat it.
We don't spell it, we eat it. That's right. But, that is encouraging. I've seen, even one or two politicians, ex-politicians, those are moving into retirement, expanding their pig farms. But again, these represent opportunities. This is what I talk about when I said that there are opportunities that come with population expansion. Some of those opportunities could represent opportunities for Caymanians, certainly on the food security standpoint, an opportunity for all of us, but particularly led and bolstered by the government, whether it be in incentives for farmers. I know at one stage, there was concerns about the endemic Cayman parrot whilst beautiful and lovely, and we wanted to protect it, but having, wreaking havoc on fruit populations, not least of which mango populations. What can the government do to help farmers, not with the culling, but certainly reducing the loss of their otherwise yield? Again, these are just areas that need to have a bit more attention, and not least of which, by encouraging the nation to grow, you can also start to encourage more and more of these backyard farms, which I think are starting to happen organically anyway, pardon the pun, with persons either feeling the pinch at the grocery store, taking the viewpoint that, you know what, it's cheaper to grow my own vegetables, for example, garlic and thyme and, basil and other things that grow very well in this climate, but also from a standpoint of health and wellness. More people are growing organic food stock so that they can feed themselves, thinking, again, not that they're going to live forever, but certainly that they can improve on their health of themselves and their families. So when we look at this number and we consider the significance of a 76 square mile island that is the Cayman Islands, and if we include, everyone else, population of under 100,000, but our consumption is fourth in the English-speaking Caribbean in terms of our dependence on America for a resource, in particular our food resource. It really should set off some alarm bells in our minds that this is significant. And what happens if this one, kind of like that Maya 1 internet cable, right now we have no redundancy, but should that underwater cable, our connection with the rest of the world, be severed, or right now
there's supposed to be another one,
it's nearing its end of life?
I get your point.
What happens when that deteriorates, or when that is no longer an option? We will could very easily become the island that time, aka the internet, forgot, and in the process, if we aren't careful, if we aren't planning for the future, much again going back to what the caller Mario Ebanks was touching on a planning stage, that includes our food products. How are we going to feed ourselves?
But that's unfortunately what happens, right? I mean, to the point of Mario with the development plan and what you're talking about, food security, it's part of the political challenge that we have. And that is, as I mentioned before, there was this little saying that a genius is someone who sees something that no one else sees, shoots at it, and hits it. Now, if I put that in common parlance, what you would look like is a bit of an idiot, because you'd be shooting at something that no one else sees, and supposedly you hit it and no one knows because you can't see it. And it's one of those situations of saying you're attempting to address a problem that has not come on the radar for the average guy, because it's not a problem to him. He doesn't see it as a problem. So politically, it's not expedient for you to try to work on that. You could go in now and fix that problem, and it would go largely unappreciated by the masses after all. I mean, we're the ones watching Byron on TV. But the bottom line is that those things do need to be fixed. And I think that's why I've said to you before that I think you're really only going to get a lot of great things done for Cayman the day that you can get a government that's not really interested in getting reelected. That's what I mean. Because as long as you are a government that's interested in getting reelected, then you find yourself dancing to what the public is saying. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned in my article, it's not necessarily that they're weak, but they want to get reelected. And if that means telling you that, fishing with a stick is a good idea, then they'll tell you that. And they'll make a lot of promises. But without a doubt, that is an issue. One of the things that I said in, I think it was 2017, was the fact that you remember Hurricane Mitch that went to Honduras and kind of just stood there for a week. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It just sat there. I've never seen anything like it. And you can imagine just even a hurricane sitting between here and Florida / the U.S., just sit there a week. Mm-hmm. You would end up in a situation where you'd already start to see the food shelf. So, start the stocks going down. And so to your point, the political risk, there's a lot of different economic shocks. One decision being made right now by Donald Trump could put us in a tailspin.
Yes.
And we really need to take it serious. But again, who's going to say, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Because on their radar, it's just not a problem.
Right.
But without a doubt, any good leadership, I think, should be looking at that. And in terms of saying, one, what can we do to bolster the agriculture here on the island, as well as in other places? Because I am a firm believer that, we should be bolstering it here. Let's get it going. But in addition to that, there's real opportunities for us to look overseas and to own farms and different products as well that allows us to be able to diversify this dependency that we have on the United States. And I want people to note, it's that dependency on tourism. It's that dependency on food and just about everything that we do.
Right.
So you're really doing what the old people told you not to do. You're putting all your eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no management of that. No risk management of your portfolio at all. But interesting. We'll see what happens.
We shall. We'll continue to.
I can tell you when something does happen, there'll be a lot of, well, boy, I told him that, and I told him that. I told you. Nobody has an interest now, but there'll be a lot of I told you so.
I told you so. I've been saying this for years.
But, to that point about the backyard farming, I want to give kudos to the Department of Agriculture. I think that they do a pretty decent job. Providing opportunities for farmers to go there and to be able to buy a lot of the products. And bear in mind that as far as I'm concerned, without looking at the books, the Department of Agriculture, the government is, in my humble opinion, subsidizing some of that stuff, in order to be able to make it, again, affordable to farmers. So you're not necessarily experiencing the full cost there either.
Right.
But, as we talk about foreign nationals in our country, I think that we have the Jamaican population and for sure the Filipino population. A lot of them are very interested in the farming. They grow up with it more than we did, as you would say. And I think that is one of the positive influences, at least coming from those two groups insofar as Cayman. I'm sure there's others. I'm just mentioning that one. From a farming perspective, a lot of them on their own do farming. You can't go just about anywhere and not look in the back of some house or the side and see that somebody's growing eggplants and a myriad of other products.
Yeah, they certainly are getting very creative.
Yes.
Again, you'd be surprised. You wouldn't be surprised, but I'm surprised always when you say, they're a person growing things that aren't supposed to grow in our climate and having tremendous success with it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we talk about those who are doing outdoor, but again, I think of our good friend Carrie, who's doing the container farming and growing things like strawberries, for goodness sakes. Enough strawberries over the course of 6-9 weeks to supply a supermarket. So we just throw those out there to say that there are possibilities there, and there's also opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But without a doubt, these are opportunities that relate to what we consume. And are we going to be dependent? Are we going to put all of our eggs, so to speak, pardon the pun, in one proverbial basket and thereby identifying only one source? Or should we be diversifying our options a little bit? And again, charity begins at home.
Well, again,
by supporting our own local farmers, from the small backyard farmers to the larger, more commercial farmers, though few. And the fact that they are few and far between should be motivation enough to suggest that we can make effective contributions and offer effective assistance, because there are so few players in that category, in that arena of farming in the Cayman Islands, that it shouldn't necessarily break the bank, but would certainly be considered forward-looking.
And again, this is where I want to take my hat off to the persons who do take the time out, and I won't call a name because I can't call all of them, and that would not be good. But it's a lot of persons that call the programs or write in, and I really want to encourage that. Mark Twain, not his real name, again, is the one who said that the world is shaped by the unreasonable man. And I think as intellectuals, because there's many of us that think about it, we talk about it in our homes, we talk about it to our family and friends, maybe around the water cooler, the proverbial water cooler. But we're really not stepping up to the task, because those are not the persons that are texting into the talk show. In large part, they're not the ones who are calling. Mm-hmm. But in reality, they should be the ones who are calling. And we should not be letting, headlines appear that really shouldn't be. And it wouldn't happen if we were the ones who were trying to control the narrative by getting up and saying, within my workplace, I have identified at least these 5 or 6 things that could be done to help make the world a better place. Send a text. It will remain anonymous. But all of these things, the politicians, and the reason I'm saying is, the politicians are going to act on what they hear, what they feel the public wants. And if these so-called intellectuals are sitting there and keeping silent, then the noisy ones in the room that wants to, I don't know, hear about Byron hugging some woman in a Coldplay concert is what rules the day.
Indeed.
You know, and I don't think that that's where we want to go. We have to work to help make Cayman better. So sit down in the middle of the night. It doesn't take much to write a short text and say, hey, you know, here's something that I want to raise because it's affecting me. It's affecting my family. It's affecting my country. Let the politicians hear it. That is only how they're really going to act on it and see it as a priority.
And speaking of the politicians, we want to give credit where credit belongs. In 2022, Agriculture Minister J.E. Banks launched the Food and Nutrition Security Policy, underpinned by targeted programs, including the National Egg Strategy, the Nucleus Breeding Herd Project, a land lease scheme, as well as the Backyard Farming Initiative. So it is very much on their radar, and there have been efforts. We just need to expedite those efforts and give them our support. But certainly I didn't want to end by giving the perception that the government is not keenly aware of these challenges. But that's all the time we have. See you tomorrow, Cayman, for more Straight Talk on Bobo FM.
The home of the BBC World Service. The most trusted